So I'll be talking on a very basic subject, which is importance of posterior corneal elevation and how should we actually look into it. You see these ectasias like keratoconus, post-arc-ectasia, post-LASIK ectasia, they visit our premises and our clinics in various shapes and sizes. And you get these subtle signs that you can see these vertical deep lines like Bogue's striae. You can see the Flesher's ring in the cobalt blue light. These are subtle signs. Again, you see a little apical scar with prominent Bogue's striae in these cases. And the spectrum can go from central corneal thinning, paracentral corneal thinning, to even peripheral corneal thinning, like in Pellicet's marginal degeneration. And there are obvious signs we see very rarely, which are extreme ectasias like what you see right now, keratoglobus kind of a picture. Now, I'll come on to this particular patient to kick off what I'm trying to project here, trying to show you a patient, a young lady, 26-year-old, with a manifest reflection of minus 1.25 with 0.75 at 175 degree, improving to 6/6. She was very keen on getting a refractive surgery done, clinically normal looking eye, no dry eye, no problems. Corneal thickness at the center was 500 microns, and the thinnest point of pachymetry found was 494 microns. And you can see on the bottom left, the Placido corneal topography showed a symmetric bow tie pattern, which is absolutely normal. So it will be a very juicy proposition for any refractive surgeon to take up this patient with a low refractive error quite safely. But as soon as we take this patient up for a Klein-Fluke-based pentacam analysis and doing the Bellin-Ambrosio enhanced ectasia, we clearly see, as Dr. Sujata just pointed out, that you can see an ectatic posterior surface, and this patient would have been a potential for disaster after refractive surgery. So here comes in my point that we have been trying to pick up ectasias classically and historically with the Placido-based devices, where our criteria were keratoscopic Myers showing egging, a feature of egging of Myers. There will be a central localized or a paracentral area of localized increasing surface power with concentric areas of decreasing power, and there will be a huge disparity or a difference in the inferior and the superior dioptric power of the cornea. We usually said that the central keratometry more than 47.2 diopters, difference between the two eyes in the central keratometry of more than 1 diopter, and the SIMK reading more than 45.7 diopters, all pointed towards a suspected case of keratoconus. One of the pathognomonic signs described by Rabinowitz et al. Was skewing of the steepest radial axis, or the SRAX pattern, where they said it's around 30 degrees of deviation of the hemimeridian was a classical feature of keratoconus on photoskeratoscopic analysis of these patients. Now, then what went wrong with this patient? As you can see on top left, you see the classic bow tie pattern of the patient. And as I said, would have been a very juicy proposition for any refractive surgeon. But as soon as we took this patient up, where we analyzed the posterior surface as well, apart from the other features of the cornea, we immediately saw a central ectatic area. So hence, we have to look at the posterior surface, and any component of ectasia will be defined by two things. One is the corneal thinning and the ectasia, and both have to go hand in hand. So it's essentially a chicken and egg story, where did the anterior ectasia come first or the posterior ectasia comes first? Let's speculate. Now on your left side, I'll show you a series of slides, one after the other, speculative all in nature. On your left side will be the normal representation of a cornea. On your right side will be a clinical condition, which I've tried to depict. This particular slide shows a case of post-myopic LASIK and ablative surgery, refractive surgery done on this patient, where we can clearly see the flattening of the anterior surface of the cornea. So if you notice, there is thinning here, but there is no ectatic element. So this does not fit into the classification or the criteria to call this patient a patient of corneal ectasia. A case of disciform keratitis, you see, there is ectatic element. You see the anterior corneal surface bulging, but there is thickening, not thinning. So again, we do not have both thinning and ectasia going hand in hand. Now look at ophthalmos. Here we have a stretched out cornea. So both the anterior and the posterior surface bulges outward, but there is no thinning, no element of thinning. Hence, this again does not fall into the criteria of having corneal ectasia. Now this is an interesting slide. If you notice very carefully, there's a bulging of the posterior corneal surface, and there is an element of thinning. This is a subclinical keratoconus, a kind of a case that we just discussed with the 26-year-old lady. And this is something that you can only pick up if you analyze the posterior surface of the cornea and leave aside your placido disc imaging analysis to diagnose these cases. In the past, these cases were definitely missed because we relied only on the placido-based anterior corneal curvature analysis. So now let's take this one step further. So we now have an anterior bulging and an posterior bulging. But unless you have the posterior bulging more than the anterior bulging, there will never be any thinning. So both planes have to move forward, have to bulge, have to be ectatic, and the posterior plate or the posterior surface of the cornea has to bulge more than the anterior surface to cause thinning. So this is what the genesis of keratoconus is. You have to have the posterior corneal surface bulging much before the anterior corneal surface, and the posterior corneal surface will always bulge more than the anterior corneal surface. And here lies the importance of picking these cases up earlier, much before the anterior corneal bulging, and then maybe treat them with various modalities available. And this thinning and ectasia is what causes the biomechanical failure, and the posterior corneal ectasia occurs first, then occurs anterior corneal ectasia. So checking the backside of the cornea is of utmost importance. So to become a better refractive surgeon, a surgeon who operates on an eye which is normal and just for cosmetic reasons has to use the technology, has to be completely upgraded with the technology, as I said, so that they can analyze the cornea the best they can in today's era. So what is Schleimflug imaging? Schleimflug imaging is basically, if you notice the bottom two regular camera in the Schleimflug camera, in the Schleimflug camera, the plane of sharp focus and the film plate and the optics, they are all not in the same plane as in a regular camera. So hence, compared, if you look at the two railroads in the bottom, you can see here clearly with the conventional camera, you have a select and a specific area of focus, whereas in a Schleimflug camera, you have a wide and selective depth of field. This is the technology used in the Pentacam. This is the technology used in the Pentacam, which enhances our three-dimensional analysis or the tomography that was just described in the earlier talk of the cornea. So the Pentacam, the rotating Schleimflug camera, scans the whole cornea limbus to limbus and gives us a three-dimensional view of the entire cornea. So I think importance of posterior corneal elevation mapping charting is extremely important. Thank you very much.